space. So to talk about logistics and supply chains, the future of private and public chains, I'd like to bring back on stage co-founder of Untraceable, Mahyar Akhbari.
So we have a really exciting panel for you guys. It's probably one of the hottest topics in all of blockchain. It has real world use cases. There's actual applications in the world using this right now. We're going to talk about logistics and supply chains, really the future of private and public chains within that space. So I'm going to call up our panelists. First, Žiga Drev from OriginTrail. Give him a big applause, guys. All right. And then Kapi Attawar from Samsung. And Leandro Nunes from Mastercard. All right, welcome to the stage, guys. So some really interesting backgrounds here. So let's just go through one by one and let them know a little bit about your company and what you guys do. And then we'll go right into the panel topics.
Hi, my name is Žiga Drev. Judging by the name, you can hear that I'm not coming from this place. I'm from Slovenia originally. And 10 years ago, approximately, we started increasing transparency in supply chains, effectively allowing consumers to scan a product, input expiry date, and see where food is coming from. So we were focused very much on provenance in the beginning. Now that was 5 years ago. And then 5 years after, we started experimenting with blockchain, public mainnets. And we saw blockchain is not easily reconcilable with supply chains. And then we added open source protocol, which is called OriginTrail protocol. And the company, our organization, was also called OriginTrail. Is improving scalability of blockchains, public permissionless blockchains for supply chain purposes and for some other things. Right now we're working with clients in Australia, Europe, Asia, North America. We have different kind of partnerships with Oracle, with British Standard Institution, servicing different sectors from food sector, railway industry, and even financial transactions, as we noticed that the same technology that is used to track food, for example, like chicken drums, can be used to track stolen bitcoins.
Thank you. For those of you who were not here yesterday when I kind of introduced Samsung, most people don't know that Samsung actually is in the blockchain space. And we basically have two technologies, a private chain called NextLedger, that is really enterprise focused, and a public chain, which is on the Samsung Electronics side, where we have a cold wallet and key store for securing things like crypto and credentials and a number of other things. In the context of supply chain and logistics, our flagship clients are in the cold chain, meaning the food industry, but also in manufacturing and high tech. And we do both the demand side and the what I call the supply side, where you've got manufacturers dealing with their suppliers and using smart contracts to enforce SLAs and that kind of stuff. For those of you who don't know, in logistics, Samsung is actually bigger than FedEx in terms of what we do in this space. So logistics and supply chain is a really big business for us, and we've now got the blockchain experience. We've been in blockchain for about 4 years now. Most of our experience has been in Asia, and now we're pushing out into North America and Europe. And I'm responsible for the North America market.
Thank you. And Leandro Nunes, I work at Mastercard Labs. I'm based in New York. We have responsibility for the whole labs and Mastercard, and people probably asking themselves here why Mastercard is doing it. We are much more than a credit card company. We are doing a lot of innovation and technology, and one of the initiatives we have is exactly with blockchain, where we have our private chain that we connect to other Mastercard solutions. It's been basically you have three big use cases in this blockchain. One is a cross-border payment, the other is a traceability provenance, and the third one is loyalty. Well, more specifically with the supply chain side, we are just announced, and if you guys can check now. This Forbes just came out with an article about what you do in the food traceability. We are partnered with supply chain food companies and help them to track the products from the seafood in this case from the sourcing to get to the big supermarkets and groceries in America. We also doing this using something we call payment trigger, where you can, after the whole traceability, you can have the payment solutions from Mastercard to pay back suppliers, to help farmers and in the whole community to get paid more fairly and cashless, I would say.
Well, that's really exciting. I mean, obviously 3 very exciting projects, not projects, major companies. But, I can see that you guys are working on a lot of things that are in the overall ecosystem impacting a lot of different places. I wanted to first talk about logistics and supply chains. I think a lot of times people think logistics and supply chain are the same thing, but they're quite different. So I just wanted to turn the first question to logistics. And where is blockchain impacting in the logistics cycle? And where have you seen really work in the environment today? And anybody can take that question.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. When it comes to logistics, we are seeing a lot of demand in the shipping. International transportation is definitely one place where we're seeing a lot of it. We're also seeing it in the logistics for manufacturing industry. The processes today do not really track things like trucks, pallets, parts very, very well. And one of the things that that Leandro brought up in terms of IoT is a really important kind of breakthrough in terms of how blockchain and IoT can work together. Because now with IoT and RFID and stuff like that, suddenly people know that at very affordable prices, they can actually track almost every item in the logistics chain. And so we're seeing a lot of demand because there are a lot of inefficiencies. If you talk about air cargo, for example, a lot of the flight delays are caused by the fact that people don't know where the equipment is. We're seeing demand in automotive where people don't know where the pallets are. Stuff like that. So in terms of just logistics rather than supply chain, these are the areas where we're seeing a lot of demand right now. And also there are SLAs that are related to that in terms of contractors delivering things on time. And so blockchain is a great way to actually maintain the SLAs, but also charge back penalties.
I think that both logistics and supply chains suffer the same problem of lack of visibility, and that brings a problem of trust between the participants of the whole process. So this is something that blockchain helps, and that makes this being low-hanging fruit in the use case of blockchain. And instead of you start saying, what are we going to do to to save the world of blockchain, right? But use a blockchain to build the network, this trust that you need, and then bring the other things like IoT and all those other AI and all these things to help the industry. But these are 2 ones that everyday conversation. You see use cases coming up all the time.
Actually, sorry, Žiga, just a little note. Leandro and I were talking over lunch. One of the great things about blockchain is that you can bring instant visibility to multiple parties in the consensus chain, which today is completely siloed and actually is a cause of a lot of the friction and the delay. So you're taking friction out of the system. Sorry, I just want to make that point, Žiga.
I would agree entirely with both of you. What is also important to know is that blockchain on a standalone level is not a silver bullet for any problems in supply chain and logistics. What we need to take into consideration are legacy IT systems provided by a spectrum of different companies. And supply chains are not linear, they're not chains, they're actually networks. And you have networks of participants which somehow need to form consortia in order to deliver value using different blockchain solutions. So different blockchain solutions need to be, by design, they need to be open-ended, they need to be inclusive. If you don't want to just create another centralized database, you need to be following certain interoperability standards. So what we do, we focus a lot on GS1 standards for product visibility and EPCS standard, which is a standard that basically allows you to describe events in supply chains, is almost a must if you would like to establish a whole chain visibility. And supply chain visibility is an important thing, but sometimes it's very hard to reach because you have different participants from, let's say, in food supply chains, you have farmers that in some cases do have quite a lot of technology. I visited farmers in Australia and they have like planes, helicopters. So, I mean, they have, they use all different kinds of sensors. But what the problem is at the end of the day, they have too much work to do. And then at the end of the day, it's very difficult for them to onboard on using different other technologies. So this, it's about technology, and at the end of the day, it's also about socializing different, less experienced people in supply chains to start using technologies.
Yeah, I think you hit it a couple of good points there. As much as we want to introduce technology into supply chains, are the people willing to implement that change is going to always be a struggle as well, right? I did want to bring back one of the questions because I think it's really important. Mostly when people hear about supply chain and you're hearing on the news, and one of the quick things they go to is food safety, right? They're like, hey, we had a listeria outbreak. Could we have solved that, right? Could you guys speak about how your projects have been working on food safety in particular, and how have you implemented and been able to work with the parties in the supply chain to provide that safety?
There are several different methods. We work typically with other bigger service providers. We, for example, work with British Standard Institution. In food supply chains, they would like to establish what is called continuous assurance, meaning that they transition from having periodic audits of supply chains to having to have supply chains audited at all times using blockchain technology. But that's leaned more towards processes. If you would like to improve authenticity in supply chains, in food supply chains, for example, blockchain or digital solutions are not enough. You need to apply forensics as well. And you need to somehow build bridges to onboard laboratories, for example, to start using blockchain technologies. So when it comes to food safety, digital products are not enough. You need to be tapping into different other products.
We like I said, we just announced something now, and we learned that when you work with the industry experts on that one, you tend to succeed, right? We see some big technology companies just go and trying to do by themselves. We're not going to get there. We need to know the industry. You need to know the language, right? In how to to navigate in this world. And food is not easy, right? If you don't know it. So for us at Mastercard, I'm always looking for industry experts in food suppliers or MSPs there is a particular industry as the focus. And I would tell them you've just got to be focused on your core business and do your business, and let me help you to scale. So we provide the rails that they can scale, which is nowadays is so difficult, right? When you put in a blockchain, you set up a blockchain solution. People talk about pilots all the time, but pilots tend to die, right? And what we do is we come up with a scalability and a scale model that says, you're going to take from there, but you're never going to stop it and do it. So you do agile, test and learn, but you don't stop it. You just go and start to iterate and you start to bring more to this. So you help these industry experts who know well their industry, but they don't know much how to scale or to build a network, and how they can do that and get a scalable solution. That's, I think, the contribution both sides can provide.
Yeah, so I totally agree with both of you. I look at it at a much simpler level when I think about the problem we're trying to solve. If you think about today, most problems in the food supply chain are either disasters, like there's been some kind of salmonella outbreak or something like that, or it's caught up in an audit process after the fact. And one of the things that blockchain does is it actually makes it much more immediate and real time. But you have to do all the things that Leandro talked about and Žiga talked about in terms of scalability and isolating the problems in the chain. But effectively, why blockchain? The reason is you can make it immediate and preemptive, as opposed to disaster-driven and audit-driven. In very simple terms. So that's what I would say.
Right. No, I think those are very good points for sure, and I think it gives you the comfort that there's so many different places that can help this type of technology. I wanted to turn this conversation to another big topic. Is there's private chains and public chains, and then within the supply chain, where have you seen those to be successful, or where do you see it going? And is like one or the other the solution?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's much more interoperability. Some enterprise and some type of data, they require to be in a private chain, or sort of, because you're gonna see that you're gonna hear that from enterprise, right? It's part of their solution. It's the way that they can gain adoption. Others no. Others, the public would work very well and would probably bring more, scalability to the case. What I think that the secret is interoperability. Is not. I think people have to just put more thoughts on that. You can't be isolated from other solutions or other chains. And if you bring it as you're nurturing the ecosystem, and you're gonna get adoption from other companies and from enterprise in general. Enterprise don't want it to be isolated.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the thing that everybody is trying to figure out right now is, where do we apply the technology? How do you apply the technology? Personally, from the majority of the deals that we are seeing are in the private chain, and one of the drivers of that, obviously, there's a cultural issue with the enterprises where they're kind of used to being in command, so the private chain kind of fits their mentality better. But the other thing that we cannot trivialize is the fact that a lot of them are bound by regulation, and it's not such an easy thing for them to suddenly flip across to the public chain when they're bound by all these regulations. So there's going to be an evolution, I think. I think both sides have a role to play, private and public, but it's an evolution. I think while companies have to adhere to all the different regulations depending on which industry they're in, private chain, from what we've seen, is the preferred option, but public chain is coming along.
Yeah. Since the advent of our dealings with blockchain, we have been leaning more towards the public side. Although we see with companies that they are afraid already to hear word like public, because many things, as was mentioned previously, are going straight against regulation. And we were looking into certain open calls, like the Department of Homeland Security of the United States, and their stipulation was that you are not supposed to be putting any kind of personal data encrypted or non-encrypted on blockchain, on any blockchain. So there are things that, the walls that we're hitting currently, but there are instances whereby, consumers, for example, should be privy to see certain information about products, about its certification, about the audits, about its, overall the safety of a product. And this is where I think public blockchains play a very nice role. And this is where you can also achieve the ultimate level of trust So it's also a question of to whom you need to convey the trust. Is it only amongst several partners within consortium, or is it going beyond that towards consumer? And this is where public blockchains make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I think you really hit on the head of my next question. We don't have too much time, but given that supply chains and global trade is you're dealing with multiple countries, multiple stakeholders, the role of government, and you said, homeland security, but there's some countries that probably have taken a laxer approach to it. Can you guys talk about kind of role of government within the supply chain?
I'll go if you. I'm not sure. The question of government is so varied depending on which country you talk about. So if you look at it from a global perspective, I think different countries have different approaches. But one of the things I think about regulation and government is that, and I kind of said this a little yesterday, is that sometimes regulations can actually enhance new technology and actually make it more acceptable, and sometimes it can be an inhibitor, and it really depends on the mentality of the local governments in terms of how they actually apply regulation. And there's things like GDPR, and now in California you've got CCPA coming, which is, they boastfully say, is even more rigorous than GDPR. I don't know if that's good or bad, but these are regulations that you cannot ignore. And so the government is going to play a role. I think people in the public domain are getting more and more sensitive about how their data is being used. And I think it is definitely going to impact the direction of the technology and the application of the technology.
Excellent.
Yeah, different countries, different regulations. If I compare European Union with the United States, European Union by design is more decentralized because it's different history, and it is allowing European Union, it is allowing private companies to actually come up with ideas as to how to shape regulation in the future when it comes to using blockchain for various purposes. I think European Union is giving out around 300 million euros in the next few years to companies, to research institutions, to come up with solutions that are improving scalability, sustainability of blockchains, and at the same time, they would like to get a framework from companies and research institutions, which would help European Commission understand how to deal with regulation when it comes to blockchain. So they're actually encouraging and funding initiatives to come up with frameworks, which is good. I think United States is a bit different. There's also less public funding for these kinds of projects. So I think the best position you might have is somewhere in Europe, in my opinion, when it comes to regulation.
You wouldn't have any bias about that, no? No, I'm kidding. Okay, well, that's excellent. I think we've heard some really great insights on supply chain, global logistics, and I want to thank everybody for being here today, and really excited to see where this aspect of blockchain actually goes in the next year, because I find that a lot of work is being done, and we're going to see a lot of actual use in market of this already, and maybe even more in the next year. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.